Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp the Limp, and I'm here with the next part of 1985 Sacred Oil. Sorry it has taken me a little bit to get back to it. Fortunately, I'm still hurting a little bit, so it's holding me back a little bit. But I chewed up some painkillers and called it a day and said I'm going to jump on this thing. So we're going to jump back in where we left off. We had showed all the setup and the good stuff before, so you guys make sure you check that out. Now, when we eyeball our little sequence of play here, remember we're not worried about the weather phase. We talked about the tension phase. We don't have a convoy thing or an external events phase to worry about in this scenario. I think a little bit of convoy stuff, but not really, because we're not really dealing with that locked map. We'll deal with some ship stuff later on. The external events, though, just flat out are not in this scenario, unfortunately. But we did talk about the cards and the basics of how that works, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later. Now, we don't have any WMDs or strategic missiles to worry about. No chemical attacks, mass destruction yet. We're going to do some mass destruction to Iraq because that's just going to happen. I don't give a shit. And we are into air superiority phase now. So this is the part that I was talking about where it's mega hexes and you want to gain control and all that good stuff. The only thing with this is that Iran doesn't have really anything for aircraft, so I can't really do a whole lot in the air superiority phase. Just painting the camera again over real quick to show you guys, just in case you don't remember, but this is Iran's aircraft. This is what they have access to right now. There are some US-based aircraft that do come into the scenario, but they don't come in for another few turns. And these are all the Iraqi aircraft. And as you can see, there's a bunch, and they're all split top to bottom all across the Iraqi map. So they pretty well have a lock. So the way I'm figuring I'm going to go with this is each side has one of those air superiority markers that I'm going to place out. Now, the rules specifically state you can't pass. So if you choose not to place one, you can't pass your turn when it comes to placing a marker. But Iran is just going to choose not to put one out because while air superiority would be nice, they could get overwhelmed. And I want to save their aircraft for when they're needed most, and I think they're going to be needed most later. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to put their air superiority marker out because that will give Iraq the chance to have 2 air superiority markers on the table instead of just 1. Okay, so when we're looking about where we're going to place it, again, this is concerning these big white borderline hexes, all right? So this is a mega hex. This is what you're going for when it comes to air superiority. Iraq is going to place out one of their markers. They're going to place out air marker 22, place it right here in the center. And since we already know that Iran's not going to contest it and not put any aircraft to it, we're not going to worry about flipping it over to that side. And this is the point where you're going to pick what aircraft get involved with this. So when we're looking at everything, there's surveillance that you can do, but we're talking about C here, air superiority allocation phase. And this is where you can put so many squadrons assigned to that mega hex. So they're basically controlling the skies here. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't get involved with other stuff. They can support air-to-air missions and stuff like that. But basically, their goal is to control the skies in that mega hex to make ground operations in that mega hex that much easier. That way, they'll be able to bring in other air forces or whatever they're wanting to do later on. All right, so you're going to be looking at this player aid, and this shows all the air superiority areas. You can see we're using the marker for 22, and you can put up to 15 squadrons in there. That's a fair amount of squadrons. Iraq's going to play it easy. They're just going to throw this little basic MiG in there. Now, the thing of it is there can be combat for that. There can be a whole back and forth of trying to take control of that mega hex. We're not going to have to worry about that since we're not going down that road. Iran's trying to preserve what assets they have. So Iraq's pretty much just going to take control of this right off the bat. Make sure we'll put that one right there. We'll use that as the Iraq side. Now, if you are more curious about how the air superiority and this all works now, go watch my video on 1985 Under an Iron Sky, because it's the same type of combat that we're talking about. And I go very in depth into the air superiority phase and how that works back and forth and all that good stuff. So if you want to know about that now, go check that video out. I cover it more in depth there. You're not going to see as much of that air superiority stuff in this game or in this scenario, just because of the assets that are involved in the combat. All right, so next up we'd be looking at the nuclear strike phase. Don't have to worry about that yet. We'll later. And then we get into the basics of the game, the action phase. And it always starts with the Soviet action phase, which is going to be Iraq for us in this case, and then it goes into the U.S. action phase. Reinforcement phase. Available reinforcements are placed on the map near their entry hexes. That's if you have reinforcements or replacements, or the next one that come in. Reinforcements and replacement points are something that your scenario will tell you what you're going to have. And just so you guys can see again what I'm talking about here, when we're talking about reinforcements, we're talking about stuff like this. Like the U.S. faction comes in later, and during turn 5, they're going to be deploying some air assets to help out Iran. Some F4E, F-15, F-111. So we got stealth in there. That's nice. Not sure what the RF4C, some type of recon, I'm guessing. Yeah, recon, you can tell by the R getting involved in there later. But all those aren't going to come into play until turn 5. And the Soviet faction does as well. They've got reinforcements that are coming in. A bunch of MiGs, it looks like, but they aren't coming in until turn 4. So we don't have to worry about those guys. And when we're talking about replacement points, you need to look here for stuff like that. You see, Iran starts with 1 replacement point, and Iran receives 1 replacement point there at turn 3. And I think Iraq receives 1 ground replacement every 4 turns starting on turn 4. So we don't have any replacements we have to worry about just yet. All right, Special Forces, we're not going to be dealing with those too much in this, because remember, they don't have Marines, they have Pissant Infantry, but we don't have any Special Forces raids. This is stuff like paradropping troops in, stuff like that. We're not doing any of that just yet. So we're really into the meat of the game now, which is the movement phase. Land and naval units move, engage in combat, and resupply as required. Okay, so when we get into the movement phase, when it's coming to this game, I'm not going to be able to show everything for all 8 turns. It would take me a friggin' 50-part video series to show everything. So some of this I'll do off camera, and we'll film some. We'll do a little bit off camera, film some. That way I can kind of show you guys how the combat's progressing over a period of time. But we'll get little bits and pieces. I decided to kind of start here in the center so I could show you guys a few different pieces. We're operating in where there's already an air superiority hex going on, even though we're not going to do a whole lot of air combat here starting off. But my general plan is that whereas a small little force that started right here and a small little force that started here. All right, I moved the camera down to make sure I had everything in that I wanted to see. So we've got a couple of headquarters units. There's one underneath this artillery here, so that's good for keeping supply. There's another one over here that can supply these guys. And the stuff that's way down here at the bottom of the screen, this is all that southern portion that's all locked in and going to be in combat right there at the start, because they're right there on the border. But I wanted to start actually showing some movement. And one of the key things about this game is there's no real signifier to show that a unit's been moved. And you would have to kind of like keep track of that in your own certain way. Now, the way that works for me is to use my little yellow beads because it stands out really well and I can easily see it on the table. If you don't want to do it that way, you can simply invert the counters. I wouldn't flip them because you still need to see what's on the counters, and flipping them sometimes will change stuff. So don't do that. But you can turn them inverted or turn them sideways if you want to do that as a different way to tell whether or not you've already moved that counter for that turn. Now, this is where we're going to get really stuck in on this terrain effects chart. And remember, there's different types of movement. You got road, tactical that come into it. There is Hedgehog, but Hedgehog can't move. Okay, so if a unit goes into Hedgehog, they're staying the ground. They're staying where they're at. They're digging in. Road is not. It's faster. Doesn't cost you as many movement points, but you're not as well protected. I tend to keep most of my stuff in tactical just because it's easier. Now, one thing that is going to be an issue for us is you guys can see all these movement costs for the different types of terrain that they're going into. Okay, so like just a regular plain terrain hex is 2 points. Now again, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. We're going over it a little bit slow. The hexes that you're moving into, you've got 20 movement points for everything. All right, everyone gets the 20. But key but here. Infantry, so the NATO symbol for infantry, rectangle with the cross there in the center, don't get 20. The movement point cost gets doubled on that terrain effects chart when it's just an infantry unit. That didn't come into play as much in 1985 under an iron sky because it was a lot of NATO forces. Most of their stuff was mechanized, but the Iraqi forces and the Iran forces have a lot more of just pure infantry units, which are not as fast. Now, sure, at this scale, these people do have some type of mechanized forces to, carry supplies and stuff, but not enough for them to be actually considered a mechanized unit. Definitely not an armored unit. So they will not move as fast. So when we're looking at this chart, we have to double this. And that's going to come into play big time, especially remember fatigue kicks in after 20. There's fatigue level 1, fatigue level 2. These incur negative penalties in combat. So you don't want to fatigue your guys, but you can fatigue your guys to push in that little more, just that one little step that you need if you need just a little bit more, a little more go in your people. Now I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at this right. I think, okay, this is lighter. So this has to be high plain, and this has to be plain. So this high plain, the brown one's desert, and this here is marsh, swamp stuff right here. Now, unfortunately for us, swamp is 18 points, or not 18 points, excuse me, 8 points. But when we double that, that's 16 points. That's almost their full movement for infantry. Just to move in there, and they couldn't move any farther without incurring fatigue, and I don't want to get fatigue on them right off the bat. I should have thought of that before I placed these guys out, but I'm not going to change it now. So yeah, swamp. My thought here, all right, my battle plan was to have these guys push up, come up, take out this fixed anti-air weapon. It's by itself. Iran's not going to waste any forces trying to protect it and just wipe it out on its way, and do like a two-pronged attack here in the middle. These forces attacking them along this edge where they're going to be weaker because they're attacking across a river, and these forces coming in and trying to pincer them down here. Now they will be weaker because they'll be pinned in, right? It's a smaller gap in between these rivers for them to push into, but it'll hit them from two different directions. Good Lord, I swear to God, toddlers exist just to drive you nuts. Okay, anyway, back to what we were talking about. Movement costs down over here. You guys let me know what you think about this spot of lake or thing here, because the majority of these hexes are not filled with this water. So I'm trying to decide if these units can cross this or not. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this little area. Regardless, the rest we're going to move up. So unfortunately, the best we can do is just eat this movement cost. That's going to be 16 movement points for each one. And I'm not going to incur fatigue this early, so we'll just do it that way. And I can't even move them forward because it's double. Now, green I can. Green, I can move one farther, because that equals exactly 20, so I can get him to there. All right, and this one go there. And now the tank's good, because he's not incurring the double, so that's 8. for him, so he can boom, boom to there, which means that'll be 2, boom, boom, and he can actually get to there. And 1 move, that's 20. Perfect. Okay. And this HQ, we're going to move up along as well with the artillery. That'll be 16 for them. Helicopter, we're not worried about moving him. We'll leave him there. And this will remind me that I have moved all of these units. Ooh, I can't move that tank to there. I cannot. I have to look that back, because if I move there, that's adjacent, which means he has to attack, and he doesn't have enough movement points to attack without him. Well, I can take the fatigue. Let me look. All right, I decided to go ahead and push on with this anyway, because screw it, the fatigue's not going to kill him at this point. He's not going to be stuck in against anyone anytime soon. And this is an auto win against this static air defense here. So boom, it's wiped out. And he can automatically advance. I have to do the attack because I'm adjacent to an enemy unit. So boom, we'll just take him out. We'll pay the 2 movement points, which means he's spent 22. So he is in the fatigue range. So he has no fatigue. And we have to roll the D20. And on 11 to 20, we will bump up to fatigue level 1. So 50-50 shot. I'll take a 50-50 shot to see if we get it. All right, come on. Give me a low number here. Actually, this is Iraqis. I want a high number. I want the Iraqis to do bad. There we go. Got that. And let's grab a fatigue for him. Actually, paying attention to this ground movement cost, he was doing a standard assault anyway. So I would have been spending more than that. It doesn't matter because I wasn't high enough in there to guarantee it as far as the amount of fatigue, the points that I spent. So we've got base movement points plus 1. That's your chart. Base movement points plus 11. That's your chart. It changes. And then base movement points plus 21. Depending on how far you push it past your normal just base 20 will determine which one of these charts you're rolling on. Now, it was higher than I originally estimated, but didn't matter. Still a same chart, so boom. He did get his fatigue, though. I don't get why these high planes cost more than just a regular plane, though. It's plain. Plain means flat, means boring. Costs 1 more movement point, though. All right, but they're still good. They're still in supply, so these guys are good. We'll move these up as well, but all these infantry have to pay 6 movement points per one of these color hexes and 4 per these, versus the armored and mechanized headquarters and artillery here, they pay less. So let's see what we're going to do here. What I'm probably going to do is get them adjacent. Not adjacent, but just up to it, like 1 hex away, because I don't want to have them push up and fatigue and attack on the first turn. No need to stress them. We'll try to play it smart. Even though it's Iraq, I should be playing it dumb because they're a bunch of dummies. So 6, 12, 18. How many hexes do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe have him go down 1 more instead. Yeah, have him go to there. All right, we'll do the same thing. 6, 12, 18. 6, 12, 18. 6, 12, 18. 6, 12, 18. I got 1 infantry back here, way back in the back. 6, 12, 18. And I want to have this artillery in a position to where it can support as much of the attack as possible. Now there's a bridgehead right here. If I can gain control of that bridgehead, that'll be good stuff. But they've got a mechanized unit right across the bridge and an armored unit right next to it. And of course, infantry right next to that. So that'll be a hard attack. And the other area to come in from this direction, because I think, is there another bridgehead there? Yeah. And there's a road bridgehead here. and that's defended as well, but just by regular infantry. The armor is positioned, I think, not exactly on the bridgehead, but so it can counterattack if the bridgehead is lost, even though I probably should have them on the bridgehead. But since there's armor that way, we'll send our armor to the north. And that's going to be, that's 3, 5, and that's a new one. Let's take a look. All right, I believe that's 4 movement points, so that's 9, 12. Oh, go up one more. Yeah, we'll get him in position. Yeah, definitely. So we're still under 20. We're good there. We'll send the mechanized up north to back him up. 2, half and half. We'll call that 4 since it's still brown. So that's 6, 10, and 13. So he'll be good there. We'll leave him there. I'm staying just outside of their zones of control, even though I don't believe they exert a zone of control across the river, or it might just be major river hex sites. I'll have to check, but I don't believe they exert that zone of control. I'll have to double check that one. Do believe this guy's going to exert the zone of control though. There's a bridgehead there. And I already moved that infantry, so where can I put? Damn, this is going to spread my line way out too far. I'm going to have to probably bunch these infantry back up north a little bit. But I want to support the 2 better units, so I'll probably bring the headquarters and the artillery this way. Same thing, and they'll have enough movement points to make it. Yeah, we'll keep them back for now. That way, if I move them up, it might be worth it for them to try to come around and go after the artillery and the headquarters, but this far back, no, it's not going to be worth it for him. So I'll keep him back. And damn, this one little straggler back here. All right. What I'm basically trying to do is keep it so the headquarters is still exerting its supply status out in a radius to keep these guys in supply coming from the town. So that's probably about as far up as I can get that headquarters before I'm going to have to worry about it. But there's another headquarters over here exerting some supply as well. Now, I'm going to say these zones of control do exert across these minor river hex sides here, because the zones of control cannot be exerted across areas that the unit can't normally cross. So at national borders or things like that, when there's no war or a hex that the unit can't actually go into, it can't exert a zone of control into, but they can cross an unbridged river hex side, both major, the dark blue ones, and the minor ones, the light blue ones here. So since they can exert a zone of control there, that means since they can cross, that does mean they can exert a zone of control. So they do have that zone of control running all the way along here, which is what I wanted. That way the attackers have to push up right into this area and they're attacking, and this gives the defenders a +2 defense across this. It's going to make it hard for them to attack, which was my general plan, why I didn't set them up way up here on the border, because there's no benefit to putting them way up here on the border. Back there, natural benefit, but it's going to determine how this attack comes in here from the south with this smaller group down over here. What I'm thinking is on the next turn, I might take and send in some airstrikes maybe after these armored units here, because there is fixed AA here, but it's only got a range of 3 hexes, and this tank is just outside of those 3 hexes. But now I know what I'm going to do, so maybe the tank moves up and gets into that coverage there, so it can be protected. But this one won't be protected, so I could still go after this armored unit and this mechanized unit guarding the bridge, hit them with some ground strikes to weaken them before the infantry make their push. And then there's an oil field and an airfield here and cities that can all be taken out. So yeah, and then there's a little bit of air cover here, but it's only 1 hex. It's a small radius. so it wouldn't be able to guard these guys. It's only guarding that artillery and HQ unit. I would like to take out that artillery. Man, I love this game. Just like, I'm not a strategist by any means. I'm not like a big, deep thinker when it comes to it. But just trying to plot out these small little attacks, which way you're coming in. Just this little bit of the map, right? Just this little middle section here is enough to keep a wargamer occupied for days as they plot out the attack coming in and playing it all out to see all how it works out. And I mean, it stretches way north and south. God, I want to set up the whole game. I need a new house. All right, so since I got it cut off there for a little bit, I don't know how much time I've got left to keep this running, about 30 minutes. So we'll cut the video here and we'll pick up. I'm not going to be able to play all of this, so we'll pick up with another section. Might play the bottom section off camera and then do this upper section here on camera, because that's the big thing. Whether or not this group does well surviving against this Iraqi attack, because if they do well, they're my idea of trying to push in towards Baghdad. I need these guys to survive to try to take Baghdad, because if Baghdad can't be taken, Iran's just going to fall. All right, but put any questions, comments, concerns, any of that good stuff down below. We'll pick up the next video and we'll just do some straight out attacks here, since these guys are right here on the border, so we can get some of that going on, see how that plays out. And maybe, since it's still the Soviet turn, I might be able to just go ahead and do those airstrikes I was thinking of over here anyway. Yeah, because now I know I'm thinking of moving that tank into air cover, so it behooved me to send a strike against him before he can move into air cover. So yeah, maybe we'll do a ground strike too. We'll have to see how that plays out. All right, you guys let me know what you think. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Y'all take care.